गोपीजना वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यमुनतीरावनचारी यमुनतीरावनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमद His Divine Grace AC Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada की जय अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudiraye nashtaprayeshu bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke भक्तिर भवति नैष्टिकी ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 12, Text number 7. Well, before we read 7, there are a bunch of verses that don't have purport. So I'll read those first so that there is a sense of continuity. So this chapter began yesterday. Shukadeva Goswami said, desiring to give up his body, Vritrasura considered death in the battle preferable to victory. O King Parikshit, he vigorously took up his trident and with great force attacked Lord Indra, the king of heaven, just as Kaitaba had forcefully attacked the Supreme Personality of Godhead when the universe was inundated. Text 2. Then Vritrasura, the great hero of the demons, whirled his trident, which had points like the flames of the blazing fire at the end of the millennium. With great force and anger, he threw it at Indra, roaring and exclaiming loudly, O sinful one, thus shall I kill you. Text 3. Flying in the sky, Vritrasura's trident resembled a brilliant meteor. Although the blazing weapon was difficult to look upon, King Indra, unafraid, cut it to pieces with his thunderbolt. Simultaneously, he cut off one of Vritrasura's arms, which was as thick as the body of Vasuki, the king of the serpents. Text 4. Although one of his arms was severed from his body, Vritrasura angrily approached King Indra and struck him on the jaw with an iron mace. He also struck the elephant that carried Indra. Thus Indra dropped the thunderbolt from his hand. Text 5. The denizens of the various planets, like the demigods, demons, charanas, and siddhas praised Vritrasura's deed. But when they observed that Indra was in great danger, they lamented, "Alas, alas!" Text 6. Having dropped the thunderbolt from his hand in the presence of his enemy, Indra was practically defeated and was very much ashamed. He dared not pick up his weapon again. Vritrasura, however, encouraged him, saying, "Take up your thunderbolt and kill your enemy. This is not the time to lament your fate." And text 7. Yuyutsatam kutrachid atatayinam jaya sadaikatra navai paramatmanam vinaikamutpattilayasthiteshwaram sarvagyamadyam purusham sanatanam yuyutsatam kutrachit atatayinam jaya sadaikatra navai paratmanam vinaikamutpattilayasthitishwaram sarvagyamadyam purusham sanatanam. Yuyutsatam kutrachit atatayinam vinaikamutpattilayasthitishwaram sarvagyamadyam purusham sanatanam. Yuyutsatam kutrachit atatayinam vinaikamutpattilayasthitishwaram sarvagyamadyam purusham sanatanam. Yuyutsatam kutrachit atatayinam jaya sadaikatra navai paratmanam vinaikamutpattilayasthitishwaram sarvagyamadyam purusham sanatanam. Ladies, please. Yuyutsatam kutrachit atatayinam jaya sadaikatra navai paratmanam vinaikamutpattilayasthitishwaram sarvagyamadyam purusham sanatanam. Yuyutsatam kutrachit atatayinam jaya sadaikatra navai paratmanam vinaikamutpattilayasthitishwaram sarvagyamadyam purusham sanatanam. Yuyutsatam kutrachit atatayinam jaya sadaikatra navai paratmanam sarvagyamadyam purusham sanatanam. Yuyutsatam of those who are belligerent. Kutrachit, sometimes. Atatayinam, armed with weapons. Jayaha, victory. Sada, always. Ekatra, in one place. Na, not. Why, indeed. Para Atmanam, of the subordinate living entities who work only under the direction of the Supersoul. Vina, except. Ekam, one. Utpatti, of the creation. Laya, annihilation. Sthiti, and maintenance. Ishwaram, the controller. Sarvagyam, who knows everything, past, present, and future. Adyam, the original. Purusham, enjoyer. Sanatanam, eternal. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Vritrasura continued, O Indra, no one is guaranteed of being always victorious but the original enjoyer, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan. He is the cause of creation, maintenance, and annihilation, and he knows everything. Being dependent and being obliged to accept material bodies, belligerent subordinates are sometimes victorious and sometimes defeated. Purport. The Lord says in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, text 15, Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishto mattah smritir jnanam apohanam cha. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. When two parties fight, the fighting actually goes on under the direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is Paramatma, the Supersoul. Elsewhere in the Gita, chapter 3, text 27, the Lord says, Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashah ahankara vimodhatma kartaham iti manyate. The bewildered spirit soul, under the influence of the three modes of material nature, thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by nature. The living entities work only under the direction of the Supreme Lord. The Lord gives orders to material nature, and she arranges facilities for the living entities. The living entities are not independent, although they foolishly think themselves the doers, karta. Victory is always with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As far as these subordinate living entities, they fight under the arrangement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Victory or defeat is not actually theirs. It is an arrangement by the Lord through the agency of material nature. Pride in victory or moroseness in defeat is useless. One should fully depend on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is responsible for the victory and defeat of all living entities. The Lord advises, Niyatam kuru karmatvam karma jyayo hi akarmanaha. Perform your prescribed duties, for action is better than inaction. The living entity is ordered to act according to his position. Victory or defeat depends on the Supreme Lord. Karmani eva adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. You have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but you are not entitled to the fruits of your actions. One must act sincerely according to his position. Victory or defeat depends on the Lord. Vritrasura encouraged Indra, saying, Don't be morose because of my victory. There is no need to stop fighting. Instead, you should go on with your duty. When Krishna desires, you will certainly be victorious. This verse is very instructive for sincere workers in the Krishna consciousness movement. We should not be jubilant in victory or morose in defeat. We should make a sincere effort to implement the will of Krishna or Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu And we should not be concerned with victory and defeat. Our only duty is to work sincerely so that our activities may be recognized by Krishna. Om Ajnanatirmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chaksurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovishram Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay. Prabhupada starts this purport by quoting from the Bhagavad Gita that Krishna is the source of course, everything, but that he is sitting in the heart of every living entity. Sarvascha chaham hridi sannivishta. And because he's sitting in the heart, he is providing what we say inspiration. And that inspiration manifests in this way. Sometimes there is memory about something. Sometimes there is knowledge and intelligence of how to say, act, or something, or think about a particular thing. And interestingly, apohanamcha, there is inspiration to forget something. We have that experience, right? Some people remember very interesting things. Some people don't. And even persons who can remember in very critical moments can forget. And some people who generally don't remember in some critical moments can remember. And in general, everyone gets some knowledge or the other. Now, what kind of memory, what kind of forgetfulness, and what kind of knowledge one will receive from the Paramatma depends upon the disposition of that living entity towards Krishna. So, if a person has a disposition such that they're very materialistic, that their attraction is only to Krishna's material energy, then their memory, their knowledge, and their forgetfulness will be accordingly. They will remember all the things that are going to encourage their, we'll say, sense gratification. And they will forget everything about any good instruction in Krishna consciousness. And the knowledge will be very active about how to get more of what they're looking for. Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending in very nice ways, for example. And for those who are wanting liberation, for them, their memory and knowledge and forgetfulness will be accordingly. They will forget relationships because they are not important for them. They will remember critical, what should we say, nuances, philosophical nuances that they will be able to work on from this Veda and that Upanishad, etc. And their knowledge will be encouraged to see everything as one, meaning that everything that they're looking for is inspired in such a way that they are fixed on this idea of monism. And so, as a devotee, our memory, knowledge, and forgetfulness are according to how and where we are in our devotional path, on our devotional path. But the idea is that our memory is such that we always remember Krishna. So we always remember Krishna's instructions. And that the jnanam here in general means uh, things that we are guided by. Because each one of us is guided by knowledge. We know certain things. Oh, that is fire, I should not put my hand in it. So what we are guided by, the internal knowledge, is the teachings of uh, the disciplic succession, teachings of Krishna and Lord Chaitanya. So that knowledge that guides our day-to-day lifestyle. And some people have this much, some people have this much, some people have only a little bit. So knowledge just doesn't mean how much theoretical knowledge. Knowledge means what are those values by which we are guided. One can have a lot of theoretical knowledge, but their actions might not be guided by those values. Because it is said, it's easier said than done. It's easy to tell others. It's not so easy to do for oneself. Uh, so that this jnanam also means that values by which one guides or lives one's life. So for us it is, we will not eat anything that is not prasadam. We will try to use things in Krishna's service, and things that we don't know how to use in Krishna's service, we'll set them aside for someone else who knows how to do it. Uh, we try to be truthful in our activities. We try to be gentle or humble in our speech and behavior. These are guiding principles for living. That we don't speculate. We take guidance sometimes for seemingly small things, but the idea is to understand a principle and live by the idea of being guided. And so while we are guided, even if the outcome is, let's say, not in our favor, but we are satisfied that, well, I did this under guidance. So what was more important is that I took guidance than the particular outcome per se. So it's important. Those are and Krishna gives such knowledge because he describes in the 10th chapter, Yesham satata yuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhiyogam tam yenamam upayantite. I give the knowledge by which they can come to me. So this jnanam is that knowledge. Depends on the disposition of a person. If the person's disposition is away from Krishna, they get full knowledge of how to go after that particular thing. And apohanam cha, forgetfulness. In this case, for a devotee, the forgetfulness is of different kinds. They forget their sense gratification life. Whereas a materialist will forget their spiritual life. So memory and forgetfulness, they go together. What you remember something, you may forget something else. So Krishna gives forgetfulness, which is important. Now, when we speak to a general audience, the forgetfulness is that we forget the past. We have a tendency to forget the past. And it's important because without forgetfulness, one cannot move forward. For example, if we remembered our previous life, And that would be tough. I mean, for most of you, maybe human beings, I am very convinced I was a cockroach. So for me, it's a little difficult to remember. If I were to remember my previous life, as soon as you turn on the light, I run. I have an identity crisis. Who am I? Or within this life, we go through certain experiences that cause, we say, trauma. And on a day-to-day basis, we forget that trauma in general, unless it gets what's called triggered, unless it gets something happens by which all of it comes out again. So forgetfulness is important, some things. And our ability in general to remember or forget to a large degree depends upon the nature of our senses. When the senses are blunt by sense gratification, the tendency to forget pretty much everything. If we've seen that the forgetfulness is, this is, I guess, a nice point. A person who's very selfish into sense gratification, then all they can remember is themselves and their needs. And they become completely oblivious to anyone and everyone around them. We don't care for anyone else. The hero is, for such persons, let's say Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyakashipu did not care for anyone. All he cared for was himself and how he felt. And so and what is the forgetfulness in Hiranyakashipu's case? His own son. This morning I was hearing Prabhupada speak on uh, the 9 processes of devotional service. It's that verse from the fifth chapter of 7th canto. And the little boy Prahlad standing in front of his father and saying that I think that the best thing to do in life is to hear about, chant about, and remember Vishnu. And he's saying remember Vishnu, and Hiranyakashipu forgot everyone, including that this is my relationship, this is my son, and was ready to kill him. So memory is very much governed by how we are feeling and processing certain things. Because in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna describes when there is anger, primarily, how it clouds memory. So all of this, what is given and what is withdrawn, is done by Paramatma sitting in the heart. And we might say, oh, for some persons he's giving this and for some persons he's not. Well, it all depends on that particular individual and their disposition towards Krishna. To what degree they are either turned towards or away from Krishna. So it's important for us to know because we're experiencing this every minute and every day. Now, particularly in this case, Vritrasura and Indra are fighting, and Prabhupada brings the purport home for us about 2 persons fighting. So here he's saying that actually it is the Paramatma who's inspiring certain things, inspiring everything, literally speaking. Yet, there is another verse that is operating. Prakrite kriyamanani, gunai karmani sarvasah. That there is that a person thinks that he is the doer in all of this. Ahankara vimudha atma. Vimudha means bewildered. He is bewildered by his false ego. And he thinks, I am the doer. This I am the doer mentality comes because a person, sometimes innocently, sometimes not so innocently, thinks that they are the source of how material energy moves around them. This energy is Krishna's. We're just caught in it, but we think we're moving it. uh, it's moved by the modes of nature. So it's like a puppet, and in a puppet show, if the puppet picks up a spoon, for the audience it looks like the puppets picked up the spoon, but in actuality it's the person with the strings in their hand. So it's the one who has the strings in their hand is the very beloved Maya Devi. And she's moving under his direction, as Krishna describes, Prabhupada describes. Um, the Lord gives orders to material nature, and she arranges facilities for the living entities. The living entities are not independent, although they foolishly think themselves the doers. So only an independent person is a doer. Those who are not independent, they're going to do. They are made to do. So for all of the conditioned living entities, they are made to do certain things by the modes of nature. This is Arjuna's question in the third chapter. Sometimes I feel like I don't want to do something, but I'm pushed as if by force, by some other energy, to doing something. Atha kena prayuktoyam papas charati purusha. He says, what is it that impels a person to perform sinful activities as if by force? It is the modes of nature. And in particularly that which makes us think, I did it, or it's happening because of me, is the mode of ignorance. Now one may not say, or one may think. Somewhere we may think, I gave such and such person some advice. It happened, I did it. Or it was because of my help something happened. So this is the problem for a conditioned living entity, that the mode of ignorance is actually doing stuff and making us think that we are doing it. And one tends to forget Paramatma. So back to the previous verse, when we think we are doing, when Krishna then he removes that memory that actually he is doing it. It's part of the apohanamcha. We forget that, oh my dear Krishna, you're the one who's actually doing these things. You're actually empowering me to do so. So I cannot take credit for what is manifesting in front of me. We usually don't take credit when things break down. It's like, oh, Paramatma. He's always the one who's messing things up. We're the ones who are fixing things. Because when things go right, I'm very humble servant, but it's me. And something breaks down, Paramatma inspired it to break down. So he's always the breaker downer, I guess. And then he's talking about victory and defeat. And he's saying that both are inspired by Krishna. Victory is always with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it doesn't matter what is going on, Krishna is always victorious because he is the most independent, the supremely independent. And externally, he says the subordinate living entities, they fight under the arrangement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, is Krishna arranging for people to fight? You two should fight, you two should fight, you two should. It's not like he's arranging for them in that sense. But he has arranged for the material modes of nature to act in such a way that there is high tendency to cause friction. And especially in Kali Yuga, it is said that everyone is so dried up, the heart is so dried up that even by little friction there is fire. It's described like there are two bamboos, and because of the wind, two bamboo sticks, they can hit against each other and there can be a forest fire. So the modes of nature act in such a way, and especially in Kali Yuga, it always feels like one person is interfering in the life of another person. Somehow when the paths cross, there is a little bzz, some little friction. For no reason, there is friction. Of course, Kali means quarrel. So there has to be, it's a high friction environment. Because in terms of physics, when the surfaces are very dry, there is higher friction. So to avoid that, usually there is what they put oil or grease or lubricant so that it doesn't cause so much friction. In Kali Yuga, that sort of lubrication, the softness of dealing with each other is very little. So it's big fire comes up from a small thing. That softness is not there. But anyway, it's arranged. The environment is surcharged in such a way, Krishna's arranged, that people's kalaha, actually, comes out. Kalaha means envy. That manifests fully in Kali Yuga. The environment is such because all the sattvic personalities who can provide that sense of, I guess, non-friction environment, lubrication, they're not there. They're not around. It's not so prevalent. We see in Satya Yuga and all that, even for great reasons that otherwise in Kali Yuga there could be a world war that can break out. In Satya Yuga they say, okay, okay. Or at the most one will get cursed, the other will bow down and walk away. By the time later yugas come, there's cursing, counter cursing, back and forth. We see, right? In Lord Shiva's followers, there was like massive outbreak. And of course, that's an aberration. It's not an everyday thing. Therefore, it shows up in the Bhagavatam. If you have to write the everyday thing in Kali Yuga, the Bhagavatam will be not 18,000 verses. It will be filled with broke out here, fight broke out there, this fellow attacked that fellow counter cursed this fellow, and only a few incidents of these people were very nice to each other, but to show up and all. But it's all ordained. Now, let's bring it home. We have arguments, disagreements, sometimes even fights among devotees. Part of it is that there is this whole modes of nature that are active because we're still transitioning from the material environment into the spiritual environment. We're just about transitioning at a level of sadhana. So friction and those things happen because of the modes of nature. And of course, that's also arranged by the Lord in the sense the modes of nature act in a particular way. And even within the spiritual environment, there is disagreement. There is argument. There is so-called victory and defeat. And Prabhupada saying that also is arranged by Krishna. So we may wonder why. One practical application from this is it's a way by which we can assess one where we are. Two, Krishna gives us an opportunity to take the higher road. And a third, no, I'll explain the higher road. And a third is in addition to taking the higher road, we get the opportunity to practice the instructions that are within the Bhagavad Gita or the Srimad Bhagavatam, or to emulate the life of the great personalities. Now, taking the higher road does not always mean that one steps out of the argument. Here Prabhupada writes, he quotes this verse from Bhagavad Gita, Niyatam kuru karmatvam karma jnayo hi akarmanaha. Perform your prescribed duty, for action is better than inaction. Inaction means not doing anything. Now, in this section of the third chapter, the general sense of not doing anything is where a person thinks, well, it's not going to happen the way I wanted it, so I'm not going to do anything about it. It's giving up, as they say. While Krishna is saying that one doesn't give up one's duty, one gives up the proprietorship to the outcome. That means one continues. We are engaging with the material world every day, and most days things don't happen the way we like it. But here we don't give up our duty. So each one of us has certain duties, personal and I guess communal duties. And the idea is to continue doing our duties. It gives us an idea of where we are at, because each time it's good to know, where am I in my Krishna consciousness? Have I received the ability by Krishna? Has my heart developed to such an extent that in certain circumstances I am able to be more Krishna conscious, if you will? Am I remembering to be a servant of Krishna in that circumstance? And not so much whether I'm winning or losing. Because here's Prabhupada saying, winning or losing is not so relevant. What is relevant is, are we being Krishna conscious? So on a day-to-day basis, things will always clash, or there will always be something. It keeps life interesting in one sense. So the point is, how are we being Krishna conscious? It is an arrangement. If one can see it, that Krishna's arranged this situation for me, one, to learn something, to be able to see something, or maybe I'm seeing everything and they're not seeing something. But if I'm seeing something, how can I see that as an ability from Krishna? How do I use it in Krishna's service? As far as the outcome particularly, it's not in our hands. So I'm going to pause and see if there's some comment or question or something. Rasika. Won't announce it.
I felt like the end was abrupt because
Yes.
I'm wanting to hear more. Probably because you knew I had a question. My question.
My eyes went to the clock and I said there will be discussion, so let me give it time.
So, towards the end, when you're talking about this point about carrying out one's duty, I'm thinking of myself and my situations, and how can even one define what's one's duty? Because we have services assigned to us, we have services that we take initiative in, and then we are a responsible member of a society or a temple or whatever, which then is an ambiguous line as to what the duty is. And many times, my idea of being a responsible member may mean encroaching on another's space and service, and then that whole friction thing. And so, what is the right attitude and way to do what I feel is responsible versus not looking at it, oh, what you said, giving up?
Let me start a little general first. In general, a sense of duty comes from one's sense of identity. If, for example, one's identity is Brahmin, they have a duty as Brahmana. Some some uh, some person's identity is Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. Their duties are accordingly. Of course, I'm speaking general. And in our case, who's to say who's Brahmin and who's Shudra? Generally, there are Brahmanical engagements, and we identify so. And out of it, uh, if if we identify ourselves as, well, I'm performing Brahmanical services, uh, then within that Brahmanical service is a duty of a Brahmana. One may say, well, I'm really not a Brahmin, but somehow I have been initiated so that services can go on. That may have been in the beginning, but there's no stopping for us to develop Brahmanical either qualities or behaviors. And part of that Brahmanical is the whole list of things. Uh, and one of the things is being able to see things as they are. And when we see things as they are, depending on, along with that Brahmanical, I guess, duty, is also our position within the community. We're a member of the community. We're talking of, let's say, temple or whatever. There's a position, and that position may entail certain things. It may not entail certain things. I may be able to express it to someone that I see something or I feel this way, and beyond that, we may not have the jurisdiction to, let's say, act on it. Someone else may have. I'm thinking, let's say, the GBC. They have a jurisdiction greater than ours is to do something. But when we see ourselves as a member of the society, ISKCON as such, well, there are certain duties as well. And primarily the duty would be to bring up if we see something and that doesn't, either we don't understand or it doesn't fit in or it's starkly something, we bring it up. That's, in my understanding, where our duty may end. Meaning we may not have the capacity to do something beyond that. Or it depends on each person how much they want to exercise that. But the fact that we may have performed our duty by saying, I see something and I bring it to your attention, or whose ever attention. I'm saying something, so I'm going to get some response back. So,
How can how can we act from that place where we are seeing how we are? That's one, because how can we say so confidently that we are seeing things the way they are when we are all
we
conditioned?
only see things as they are, to whatever
In,
degree they are for us.
so then, inherent in that is that we are seeing from our colored vision. So
Correct.
why move
Well,
from?
because part of being a devotee, if you will, or part of coming into knowledge is to be able to see things as they are, not as they look to me. So we are supposed to develop what's called Shastra Chakshu, to see things in the light of scripture, to see things in the light of Krishna consciousness. And someone else may have a Krishna conscious vision that we may not have. And we want to have that. And it doesn't happen in one instance. It may happen over many, many, many instances, years to be able to develop that vision. But we want to, because we want to go out of this relative vision environment. Because in the relative vision, whatever I see seems true to me. Whatever else someone else sees, it's true to them. So, hey, you're okay, I'm okay. But there is a what we call absolute vision from the point of view of how Krishna sees it. Because we want to know how Krishna sees it. And even Krishna said, well, I've expressed it, how I see things. Oh, it doesn't resonate or connect at this point in time. And I have to hear it again and again. I have to be connected to Krishna such that I will be able to appreciate and see how Krishna sees things. How does Krishna evaluate this situation, whatever that situation is? And I'd like to one day, by His grace, be able to see that the same way, because it's important for me. I'm trying to develop that vision. Because now, philosophically speaking, what perpetuates life in this material world from one life to another is the disconnect in vision from how Krishna sees it and how we see it. Because when I see something in a particular way, I act on it. And when I act on it, there is some reaction from it. And as a devotee, I'm trying to navigate this very difficult path. Okay, I see something, but now I have to see how Krishna is seeing it. That's a big step for me. I'm not sure, but somehow I have to act on the way Krishna would like me to see it, and that's the adjustments that I have to keep making. And so in that adjustments, I do step on someone's toes or encroach someone's space, and then we readjust. It's a navigation. We try to navigate our way through the modes of nature without being so affected by them. And that navigation is the tough one. But within that navigation is what we say purification, that we're learning and experiencing and trying to go. So that navigation is not easy because it's a whole different environment. We're going from the modes of nature environment where there is uh, such dynamic changes to this environment where there are also such dynamic movements. We're trying to figure out how does life look in this environment. And that's the difficulty.
One last one.
Yeah.
So when we are trying to cultivate or meditate on this position that we have, where we're not a Brahmana, we're not a Kshatriya, we're not a Vaishya, it's just this servant of the servant of the servant. Is it that we just don't have that kind of simplicity to just take that to heart and just be? And so that's why all this other stuff needs to happen? Or we can just ignore all this other stuff, even though there may be voices and desire, and just say, I'm just a servant of the servant, and let me just do that.
Well, from what I've understood about, I guess, life, human nature, if you will, and not that I'm an expert at that subject, uh, one our way during sadhana bhakti is that conscious, deliberate adjustment of our position. I'm a servant of Krishna. As a servant, how am I supposed to look at this situation or these situations? It's a it's an adjustment that comes from the philosophical, intellectual side as well, and that helps realign ourselves. And for some persons, if they can manage through that, great. But in many cases, or most cases, it also becomes something that's pushed under the carpet and unaddressed for a very long time. And unfortunately, the other day you were here, I think. We were talking about the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, and things get registered in the subconscious mind. On the very conscious realm, it's like, oh, okay, no problem, we'll move on. But things get a little registered in the subconscious, and they grow there. And they keep growing and growing and growing to such a degree that sometime it may not happen in the current environment. Let's say, oh, it can, but let's say time passes. We've been very expert at pushing it under the carpet. That's okay, it's okay, I'm a servant. And lo and behold, uh, if one day that I'm a servant thing doesn't work for me, or I forget it, or something, right? This whole thing is a beast, it's a monster sitting there. So we can brush it aside, and parallelly there has to be very good hearing and chanting practices, because what we brush aside can dissolve or go away. Otherwise, it's nicely building. It's a monster that we don't know, and one day stares us in our face, and we don't know what to do. So yes, that adjustment, the fact that, my dear Krishna, I'm your servant. Please let me just do my duties. But associated with that is the Cheto Darpana, Maharajana. If that's not nice and strong, or hearing, or however in our service attitudes, that's not strong, then that thing doesn't go away. It'll come back. And it'll come in such a bad way, or I shouldn't say bad, such a big way that we better be prepared for it. It will. It will manifest unless it's removed or dissolved, if you will.
On the same way, like when we are trying to address, and we're supposed to be detached from what happens after a certain point, isn't that also accumulating then? How is that addressed?
Well, detachment is different from,
But how is that then addressed? Like if one is not, and then how
if
is,
one is not detached.
yeah, just like one is not a servant and it's actually going under the carpet and it's going to explode one day. Similarly, how is it that one is not
So
detached and that's not accumulating?
you spoke fast. I think I was about to say something. Say it one more time, please.
At the space of one truly in the heart not feeling like a servant,
Not feeling like a servant.
yeah, like if we are collecting all that dust under the carpet, that's going to explode one day. Similarly, my question is, if we are trying to address certain things and we are supposed to address and leave and not follow through, or because it's not in our adhikar to take it further from a particular point, isn't that accumulating somewhere? And how are we supposed to address that?
Good question. Um, I, what I should say. Um, this is where intervention of Krishna is taking place. Krishna is saying, okay, person is trying, and they're being genuinely detached. Let me do something. And let me do something can manifest in any way. We don't know how for each one of us, let me do something manifest. Krishna's intervention. When we come sincerely in front of Kishore Kishori or Krishna and pray, I've expressed something, or I want to genuinely serve, and please also make me detached enough that I can move on and I can work through things. Krishna is also there. No? He's also watching, seeing, and he knows when is the right time to say, do something. Our sense of right time and his sense of right time may or may not match. Um, and in some cases, uh, we may have already known, yeah, I knew this. It's just that Krishna took his time to manifest something, but I already knew this. But Krishna is manifesting for many reasons. Like he can address many things and many persons through one thing. One is, now from a very limited vision, he could be teaching us patience. He could be waiting for something else to gestate. He could be, some place, something else he wants to address. Don't know. And I don't know what happens in Krishna's mind. However, we understand that Krishna is seeing, watching, and ultimately the supervisor for everything. That trust will also come part of being detached. That trust is there in Krishna. At this point, this is how Hemangi wants to add something. Anyone else has something? Bhakta.
And also, like when you're pushing things under the rug, and on the other side, I've done my part, but now I need to surrender, like, whatever Krishna's will is. What is the motive? That's very important. If I'm surrendering to Krishna or I'm pushing the things under the carpet, it is like I want to maintain a certain image about myself for myself, not for others. Oh, I need to be this surrendered devotee. devotee, and a good devotee is supposed to be A, B, C, D. And if those are the reasonings, then doing both, either pushing under the carpet or trying to be like, I don't want to address, I'll depend on Krishna. The motive, what Krishna is looking at is the motive in your heart, actual motive. And if that's not actually genuinely that, I truly trust Krishna, then it does manifest, like he said, like a monster eventually, either this way or that way, it will manifest. Um, Self honesty is very important. And we can take it to those that we value, like their opinion and their guidance or whatever. It can be anybody, and have trust. And after expressing that, and and if it is not settled, go back again. There's nothing wrong. You should not think that, oh, am I being too stupid? People. These are all mental. It's coming from the mental platform. But after like genuinely inquiring and genuinely trying to resolve it, and still if it's not resolving, then you can see that its Krishna factor needs to work. And that's when you literally chant with the like a child cries out for the mother. Like, cry out to Krishna, whenever it has, give me what you can pray at that point to Krishna is, give me the patience. Give me the patience that whenever that mercy manifests in my life, it will manifest. Generally, we are very impatient. We are very uncomfortable to be with our anarthas. We are very uncomfortable. And because today's age in it's everything is a fast spaced and it's everything is instantaneous. We want our anarthas to also go instantaneously, but it doesn't go. At a gross level, it does. But the subtle anarthas, they take many, 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 many years, and it's almost frustrating. I can say from my own personal experience, and on a very regular basis, I find it very hard. Like, and every time I have to remind myself, because I'm not a very patient person, I have to tell, I have to be patient. I can't demand from Krishna when that mercy can come. And the more, if my attitude is like that, the mercy is delayed. Patience is a very, very, very important quality to develop. And always constantly praying and depending on Krishna, patience comes. And then when Krishna's mercy manifests, it's almost like and the faith grows. So I would say, yeah, that's my answer. Anyway, I don't know if I.
Nice, thank you. Very nice. Dr. Luke?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
You had mentioned the verse Didami Buddhi Yogam
Yes.
on the topic of receiving guidance and the essential value of seeking guidance. I was just thinking, I'd like to hear also your thoughts. In addition to this essential principle, I was thinking of the responsibility of introspection and cultivating our own sincerity. I've always appreciated one line in the purport to that verse, or maybe the verse after, where Prabhupada says that even a devotee who does not take advantage of the instructions of his spiritual master, if he's sincere, then Krishna will give him direct intelligence. And also, whatever degree of insincerity is there, then Krishna and his instruments will reciprocate with that insincerity until we're able to give it up. So it wasn't so much to, disregard the necessity of seeking guidance, but just this other responsibility that's there. Because ultimately, our authorities can't make us Krishna conscious or become Krishna conscious for us, but really going deep and trying to abandon whatever insincerity is there.
It's a big topic because most of us believe we are sincere. Or most of us will make ourselves believe that we are very insincere.
Time you said sincere. Is
Yeah,
that correct?
we all believe. I mean, who will say I am not sincere? I mean, we want to believe I am sincere. I want trying. And in the former case, when we say, yeah, I am sincere, I genuinely want to know Krishna and know about myself, it provides a path, an impetus to keep going. And when we beat ourselves down that I am not sincere at all, depending on where that is coming from, back to Hemangi's nice point, where it is coming from will determine what we do about it. Connected, but not exactly. I've said this in the past. Once I wrote to my spiritual master, I was having this real wave of humility. So I wrote something like, I'm feeling so, low about myself that I just can't feel like, how can I come and serve Krishna? I'm so fallen. Something. I thought it was really cool. The answer I got back was cooler. He says that is not humility. He said this is a shadow of humility, because the shadow humility is something that it's a trick of Maya that takes you away from Krishna. And genuine humility will be like, yes, I'm very fallen, and the only way to move in life is if I can be engaged in Krishna's service, and I need that service. I need to be engaged in, connected to Krishna. And the spiritual master, who's that very grace, the grace of Krishna, connects that disqualified to Krishna. That is genuine humility. So he said, be careful, don't fall into the shadow humility thing. It's been a great lesson, because where it comes from will determine where we're going. And Krishna, that introspection is that, she used the word self-honesty. Part of the introspection is, where is this coming from? And in many cases, we don't know. We can't tell. Because you can't access the subconscious. I've been using the word subconscious mind for lack of a better term. We call it Cheta, if you will. We can't access the subconscious mind just by conscious, like where is it coming from? We may get some hint, but we don't get it. So our process is, my dear Krishna, what is sitting down there has been accumulating for many, many lifetimes, and I don't know what it is. But I do see, and you've been very kind to show me that certain places and patterns of behaviors. What is it? Can you please indicate? Or even better, can you please purify my condition such that I am not a victim, or I'm not falling in those old patterns? Can you please help me transcend this situation so I may be able to serve you properly, from the right motivation, from the right place? That is the Buddhi Yogam, Dadami, that he moves things. He may not have to tell us, this is what happened 4 lifetimes ago, or 20 years ago. Not necessary to know. Sometimes necessary. It's up to him. What he wants to reveal, what he wants to evaporate. But, yes.
I was feeling encouraged by your response to share one other thing that came to mind,
Sure.
if it's all right.
Yeah, it's all
I know
right.
it's getting late. It was from the discussion previously. You were mentioning these things getting swept under the rug.
Mm-hmm.
And by a strong sadhana or hearing and chanting about Krishna, then even though there's a bunch of dust and things there, it can be evaporated. Back to the topic of duty, we have so many different duties at present, they change over time. But this discussion of duty, I thought of the opening of the Bhagvatam, where Purcha Maharaj is asking that question, what is the essential duty of the human being, especially at the time of death? So again, it's hearing and chanting, because that's the eternal duty, regardless of all these other things that are in flux. So one thing that has been really helpful for me in terms of introspection and evaluating my services, which is, then I take that to the different authorities and kind of share how I'm feeling about my engagement, is how much are my services, my active services, facilitating my hearing and chanting. Because I've understood this is the essential duty. So if I do that well, anyway, it's not such a simple topic as it might seem, but I just felt, thank you for letting me share that.
It's 8:40. Otherwise, I would have done a little group exercise thing. It's 8:40. And then from 9:30 is the 32 round japa. Everyone's invited. Please come, join. If in general, I'm announced that from next month onwards, that everyone should join the 32 round. It's a particular exercise done with multiple objectives in mind. One is we all want to see ourselves, deepen our chanting and hearing. And once a month, it's something I would like to see myself and all the ones serving Kishore in different ways to be there to do so. Also, that we often see each other at some service but never get to be together. So, next Saturday onwards, we will also have a weekly broader gathering, not just our Tuesday temple devotees or some other, but everyone together, and we'll read something together. Of course, a few people are here, more are not here, so we'll announce to everyone. We'll read something, we'll discuss, we'll have little group activity for about 45 minutes. So it's, in one sense, of course, devotional service is individual, but this is mandatory within that individuality. It's mandatory for everyone to come. So please plan your Saturdays in such a way that that morning slot is open from 8:45 to 9:30, and breakfast will be at 9:30. So it's, please, those who are here, mark your calendar. Next Saturday onward. Those who are not here, we'll convey to them. Also, next Saturday, we'll have to adjust a little bit. We'll have to start a little late next Saturday because Daita went to Hungary and he spent almost a month in their farm, and he learned some exciting things about cow protection, sustainable farming, sustainable living, etc. So I wanted to hear what he's learned. And I thought it'd be nice that not just me, but he can just share across the group what he learned so that, we can, one, appreciate, two, something may click for any one of us that, oh, that would be nice or something. And it's also a group activity. We can do some things together, sharing and learning. So one option is 8:15 to 9, he can do that. Or as part of our group activity from 8:45 to 9:30, he can do that. So then we can have some discussion on it, read a little on cow protection, and he can do it. And maybe that becomes our first group activity. So to be announced exactly how to organize it. So that's next Saturday. Okay? All right. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.